broadcasting live from an undisclosed location in the universe. Welcome to Iggy Garcia Live, the show where metaphysics, holistic living, motivation, and inspiration come together to empower your mind, body, and soul. We will dive deep into the realms of metaphysical wisdom, exploring the fascinating connections between mind and matter. Get ready to ignite your inner spark and embrace a journey of self-discovery. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
What's up, everybody? What's up? Iggy here. A good morning to you. Good Sunday to you. I want to welcome to Iggy Garcia Live and episode 213. And this topic today is, who are we? So that's kind of where we're going to lead into. But before we start, every show we always begin by recognizing the people who came before us, giving thanks to our ancestors, and the people who are important and valuable in our lives. So I always light a candle. It will burn during our show. And just ask Great Spirit, or whatever you connect to, God, or whatever you call your source energy, to guide you and to lead you with the proper words, the proper feelings and emotions that you need to share, and that the message is heard properly and heard however it needs to be heard. Thank you, ancestors, and deep, deep prayers to my brother and sister Olivia and Gabriel for their loss. Their mother passed away. I light this candle for you and for many who have lost their lives here recently, and those of you who are battling diseases, feelings, emotions. I light this candle as well. I hold you in space. I hold you in ceremony. I hold you in reverence and remembrance. And those of you who are fighting the battle, just keep going. Just keep fighting. Think about all the positive and good things that will help you and lead you on your way. All right, so we're going to light a little Palo Santo, kind of set the vibe a little bit. Oh, it smells so good. All right. Very good. So how you guys doing? It's been a while. I haven't seen everybody. Everybody's been doing their thing. I've been doing my thing and getting ready for the holidays like everybody else. We had a jump circle last night over at Andrew's house. I want to give thanks to my friend Lisa and her husband for holding that space for us and allow us to drum. And it was a beautiful time. We got to actually do drum instruction, and talk about, the 4/4 count, 8 counts, and the different rhythms and the different beats and different tempos and stuff that, that goes into drumming. Of course, yesterday there was some other drum things that were going on as well that maybe I would have liked to gone to, but also, you have to do your message and got to do your work. So it's one of those things that just, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But anyways, we're getting ready for the holidays. We're getting ready to go into Thanksgiving weekend here, a week actually, and then things are going on. So there's a lot of things happening in people's lives and a lot of things going on in the world. But, for those of you who don't know, I've been doing podcasts for many, 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 many years. Part of the withinsight.com team, which they create audios and videos and newsletters and stuff, and I'm going to get back on board with them and be doing more of those things again. But I'm just been doing my own show for several years and doing interviews and things like that, and I've been really busy. I've been like hibernating in the sense that I've been working on the aspects of myself and little pieces and parts of myself. So I actually wrote a book, and it's probably going to be in reverse here in this video, but this is called The Shaman's Path for Beginners. This is a book that I wrote. So those of you who are interested in the shamanic path or just curious to see what it's like or what's it about, you know, this is a whole bunch of topics here about it. Yeah, I'm kind of like just a little foundation. There's also a QR code there too, you know, in order to leave reviews and stuff. But this book is one of my first books. This was like my second book. This is a passion book about, you know, about shamanism, the foundations, the practical techniques, the healing practices of shamanism, the cultural context and the authenticity of shamanism. You know, integrating shamanism in your daily life, advanced shamanic practices, you know, just some things I'm just reading out to you here. Community and shared practices, transformative power, and of course, you know, just the intro and stuff. So this is my book. If you're looking for something for holiday to give away, this is a great book. You can go to iggygarcia.com and you can purchase it there. Or you can go to on Amazon where, you know, they sell all these books. These are self-published books. So these are books that people like myself work hard to create. And I'm working on several other books right now. I've got several coloring books out. I have one on shamanism. I have one for the holidays. I have a Christmas one. So, you know, there's a little bit of everything for everybody. I think that regardless if you're in your genre, sometimes you should step out of your genre of expertise and learn some other things and write about your experiences with other things. Excuse me. So life is like that. Life is, you know, being the student, being the person who's learning and trying to connect and reconnect with the aspects of ourselves and the pieces of ourselves that are, you know, trying to rediscover itself, within the parameters of who we are. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about just things that we always talk about, you know, what people always, you know, talk about, you know, who are we? Who are we in the gist of, you know, our own personal lives, and who are we in the gist of the world? You know, how does the world experience us? How do we experience the world? How do we experience other people in the world? You know, it's really interesting because sometimes we have expectations about what we think the world should look like, or the world should, how we perceive the world and how others perceive us. Because a lot of times, you know, we put our judgments on people. And so the judgments is the part that sometimes causes a lot of the friction, causes a lot of the issues with people. It's not so much that people are good or bad. It's just sometimes people make these decisions that they think that you have to meet me where I'm at. But you remember, you're also got to meet people where they're at too. And then you got to find the balance. Then you got to find that rhythm, that balance, that harmony between both of you. And you'll know pretty quickly if that works or doesn't work, because sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. And regardless if it's there or it's not there, you have choices you can make. And that's the thing about when you create friendships and relationships with other people, you get to decide if this is a good one for you or not. So many times we stick into partnerships and relationships because we think we have to. And, you know, quite frankly and quite honestly, that's not necessarily good or bad for you, but it's usually not a good decision. You don't stick around because we think we have to or think things are going to get better. And how many times have we done that? So you ask yourself, how do you think the world sees you? How do you think you see the world? Do you see the world through the eyes and the lens of social media? Do you see the eyes through the eyes and the lens of what your friends, how they experience the world, and then they project that onto you? You know, it's one of those things that you can go just about any which way you want. And you have to be very cautious and very careful sometimes, I believe. And of course, I'm projecting my thoughts and my opinions too. So you also have to be able to go, okay, I agree with Iggy, don't agree with Iggy. I'm going to think about what Iggy said, you know, regardless, because you have to live your life. You have to, no matter what I say or do, whatever you tell someone else and someone else tells you, you have to make those decisions, what's best for you, how you're going to navigate, how you're going to move through the world. Because the world waits for nobody. And when I mean the world waits for nobody, the earth turns regardless if it waits for you. The sun rises regardless if it waits for you. The moons go through its cycles regardless if it waits for you or not. It doesn't matter. Each day someone's born, someone dies. Someone's born, someone dies. Boom, there's a cycle. There's an ebb and flow of life. Sometimes we're thrust into the parameters of, of energy, which, causes us to, do some very heinous things in this world. And, a lot of people are taken out. And then sometimes we just let things flow naturally, and then we just progressively go through the process. Now, the world is one of those places where you can pick and choose and dissect and tear apart the pieces and the things that resonate with you. And that's normal, and that's okay, and that's nothing wrong with that. But the world also has these things where you just kind of allow things to naturally progress. It's like a flower. The flower blooms at its own pace, its own rate. Doesn't matter how much sun you shine on it. Doesn't matter, what outside influences are other than, overwatering and stuff like that. But the flower knows. It's kind of, it just has this instinct knowing. I bought these amaranth that are on my table, and they're inside these little wax balls. The bulbs have been put in wax, and you don't have to water them. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, it's almost kind of like an air plant. It kind of becomes an air plant. It just kind of survives in the light and the moistures and the things are there. So adaptability is super wild and important when you think about it. How you adapt to your environment, how you adapt to situations. And, this plant would foster and grow in the ground as much as it's growing inside this wax-contained space in this sphere. And kind of like we're inside this huge sphere called Mother Earth, and she sustains us and gives us everything that we can possibly need in order to live. Now, and I'm looking at this plant, these pods, these bulbs. I have two. I wanted a white one, and I wanted a red one, but they didn't have it in the small ones. I had to get two red ones, but I got them from my wife, and I got them from my mother-in-law because, just a reminder, that these living things, they prosper, they go through their cycles. If I bought my wife plastic flowers, I don't think she'd be too happy with me. Sometimes there's something about, having the nature, because I can recycle the leaves and the petals and stuff and use them in certain things. But so I'm fascinated by how this plant adapts and how this plant does these things. And this year I brought most of my plants that I grow outside and leave in these pots, and I brought them into the house this year. And just to see how they would do, because, number one, it's like, if you can save them. If you can't, you can't. But also they're, plants are expensive, and there's this my human side. Well, they cost money, I'm not going to go off and just buy. I bought these cannas, and these cannas are growing really nice, still in the pot. And my wife's probably going, why is there a jungle in our house? But, it's one of those things that, it brings, this different look in our house too. It brings us this beautiful arrangement of flowers, plants that are growing. We'll miss them when they go back outside, but they have their place. And my moms are still kicking it. They're on the back porch. They're doing really good. Usually those guys dry up and they're done, pretty quick. But it's kind of where energy follows intent, like where you put the intention on things. And, and that's one of those things in our lives is where we put our intention, what we say, what we do, how we perceive, how we judge, how we project, and all those things that we do onto ourselves and onto others, so dictates everything what happens in our lives. You turn on the TV and you can be ransacked with information, ransacked with all kinds of stuff that either serves you or doesn't serve you. But regardless, when you're on there, you have to make a choice. Why am I watching this? Do I need to watch this? Should I watch this? What's the purpose of watching this? Why do I want to be inundated with this? Because I'll tell you, no matter how much you're inundated and how much, things happen to us, it does affect us, okay? Because it affects a friend, it affects another person, and something happens, something goes on. But in the same token, it doesn't affect you. Unless you're dependent on the system, unless you're dependent on, what is in front of you, it's going to affect you in different ways. And so when I turn on the news, I do watch it sometimes because I like to stay informed to the degree where I can disseminate what's important, what's valuable, versus like what they're spoon feeding me. Because some of it's ridiculous. We watch it, you're just like, wow, that's kind of, yeah, okay. And usually you're pretty right when you think about that. There's just so much right now, so much pressure and so much, divisiveness right now in the world where they're just causing separation and different things like that. But, I went back and I thought about all those things, and I thought about what's going on in the world. That's always happened. It's just to a higher degree than usual. Let's just put it that way. And so what I'm noticing is just how people respond and react to these things, and why it's triggering them, and what's going on, what's happening. But I notice that people get triggered and bothered by things that remind them of their own personal lives, their own bullies, their own people who hurt them. And so it's a huge reminder. So when we look at things and we're going, wow, why is this bothering me so much? No one ever asked that. Why is this really triggering me? Because it's the moral ground, because you're morally superior, or you're morally feel like, oh, okay, well, I would never do that. Okay, that's fine. You would never do that. But there's things that you do that also affect other people who would never do what you do. So just because it doesn't resonate with you doesn't mean that it doesn't resonate with somebody else. As humans, sometimes we're quick to judge. I'm quick to judge sometimes on what happens, the situations in front of me. And, some people look at me and they ask me, go, Iggy, so doesn't any of this bother you? I'm sure it bothers me at some level. But, as I progress in my age and as I get older, I also understand it doesn't last forever. Like it lingers for a moment. It's like if you cut yourself, the initial pain is there, you have the wound to show. But eventually something happens, something miraculously happens. That wound starts to shut itself, close itself up, and it starts to heal. The body takes over. You don't have to think about it. It just naturally does it. It knows who it is. The body knows exactly what to do. Our job as the source energy of our body, for example, really has to know what to feed the body, what to give the body. And when I mean food, I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about, energy, the ideas, the thoughts, the belief systems, and everything to our body, because everything's affected by those outside sources and the things that we hold close to our heart. If you stay in the rhythm of, that everything's out to get you, well, you're going to get more out to get you. You're going to get more things. And so that's one of those things you have to really think about. So I'm going to be doing a class on the medicine wheel. Like, this is my medicine wheel, just an example, just to give you. Okay. So I'm actually working with my Master Tao. And Master Tao is going to be working on a 15 by 15 chart. And we're going to be working together with Jeremy and Kristen. We're going to be working on teaching others. So there'll be classes coming up, and there'll be some sessions for those of you who are interested in these sessions, where we break down the components of the body and we work on the, genetic miasms of our ancestors, and in the relationship to mother, father, mother, mother to father, and just the crisscrossing of how these energies flow through us. How important who we are is not always the answer, is not what you see in front of you. We're a compilation of many, many, many playlists in time. So sometimes you go like, I don't know how I feel this way. I'm not sure, because there's ancestral energies that flow through us. And these ancestral energies are, left there for us to heal. Our ancestors leave us a message, boom, through our body, through our spirit, through our soul, and through, the physical attributes of our body, why we are affected. Because we're them, they're the us. We're all the part and piece and parts of everybody who came before us. And I've talked about this in many other shows, but you're talking about thousands and thousands of people that came before you to create the exact version of who you are today, the exact version of who I'm supposed to be today, and my siblings. And if that doesn't excite you, I don't know what to tell you, because you know what? When you think about it, you're a freaking miracle. We're all miracles. And and there's a lot of miracles that never are born, never make it, for many reasons, through death, premature death, abortions, all kinds of different things. There's reasons why things don't happen. But regardless, those of us who make it, those of us who come to this plane and make into this in the physical moment in time, we have an opportunity to heal wounds that have never been healed before. And it took thousands of generations, 7 generations deep between each side. You're talking about different levels of energy that perpetuated its way all the way to this present moment in 2025. The day you were born, the day of your conception. So Master Dow and I and Jeremy and Kristen, we're all working on, conception chart. And the conception chart is powerful medicine. And I'm going to bring Dow on our show so we can talk a little bit about that as we work through that process. But your conception chart and the conception of who you are as a human being is vitally important to help you process and move through the things. Our lives move into cycles. We have cycles of 10s, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Cycle of 60s, and a lot happens in those 10-year gaps. Just think about, where the next 10 years goes. I'm going to be 59 here. I'm close to 60. The next 10 years is almost 70 years old. I'm on the backside of 70. That blows my mind. That blows my mind because, I remember when I was 20. I remember when I was 15. I remember when I was, having my first kids. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're in the cycle. We're the elders. We're the cycle. And we're the energy that helps others heal themselves. All healing is self-healing. It's one of my, almost every teacher I've ever worked with has told me that. That in order for us to heal, we have to be the healer ourselves. Nobody can fix us. No one can help us except when we open our mind and our heart and our spirit and our soul to the healing process of what it is. And so when we tell our body that it's sick, we tell our body that we don't feel good, when we tell our body that we have aches and pains, it hears it. It already feels it. It already knows. But you just amplify the energy. Like Jeremy and my friend Jeremy, we sit at the kitchen table every morning. We should record everything we talk about because it's pretty powerful stuff. But I don't know if it would be the same if we started turning on the camera, right? Because then what? Observers change the observation in the context of what the flow is. But anyhow, we have so much power, so much control on what happens to us. But we have to be re-empowered because we've been disempowered to believe that we're not. Those of you who, follow the teachings of Christ believe that, you can do what I do, right? God said that. You can do things bigger and better than me. But a lot of people don't believe that. How can I be a God? How can I do? He never said you're going to be a God. He just said that you could do things that I can do. Why? Because he's the manifestation creation of what you believe. But that's where, if you believe that. But the universe is always saying yes. And I talked about this yesterday at the drum circle. The universe always says yes. You want this? Yes. You don't want this? Yes. And in the same token, it can say no. Do you want that? No. Do you need this? No. So yes and no are very powerful words. And maybe is the stationary bike where it just kind of puts you in that holding pattern. Maybe. Meaning you haven't decided to go right or left or yes or no. But it's really fascinating to know who we are in the context of the world, because the world helps create us, but we also help create the world. So there's like this, this ebb and flow between us and the world, because the world is our life. The world is who we are. The world is what we create and what we manifest inwardly and outwardly inwardly. So all the pieces and parts affect the whole. But the whole is not just me. The whole is the whole world, the whole place. If there was 10 people who were positive and the one person negative, that one person can come into the space and change all the 10 people who are positive into a negative state of mind. Why? Because they create the environment. They create, the feeling, the emotions. Because we're a chemical being. We're a spiritual being. We're a being that's affected by, the energies and the thoughts and the patterns. Because our spoken word is not only a thing we use. We also use, nonverbal cues, energetic cues. You can walk through a room and not say a word and have the grumpiest face and affect the whole group. And everybody's like, what's wrong with that person? What's up their butt? How many times have you seen that? Things like that. And then in that moment, it's not so much that they were trying to change the energy. It's more like they're in their own thought and their own process. But it triggered you because, you know what? It brought back a memory about when somebody or something affected you. And, so I don't live through life trying to cognitively, say, well, I don't want to mess people's lives up. But I know personally that if I am in a good state of frame of mind, number one, it creates a barrier and protection for me personally, so I don't have to be bombarded by the energies of the world, because there's a lot of people who are really hurt. And the sad part, what hurts me sometimes, is to know that a lot of these people will never heal because they're not open to the process of understanding the healing. Number two, they don't even know that they can heal. They don't know that it's available to them. They just know it's there, but sometimes they don't care. Sometimes they do care, but they don't know how to get started. That's why, for folks like myself and people who live in my life, who are in my world and I'm connected to, we have similar patterns, similar ideas, similar beliefs. We want to raise the vibration. People are like, what's raising the vibration? Well, what's the vibration? How I vibrate dictates. The law of vibration is very powerful. If you are in a positive mood, you're generally going to attract positive things into your life. If you're in a pissy mood, you're going to not be very much liked or very much, encompassed or embraced. There'll always be that one person like, oh, do you need a hug? And you're like, no. As human beings, sometimes we have to understand that, sometimes people don't want to be touched. Sometimes people just want to be heard. Some people want to they just want to be themselves. They just want to be pissed off. And that's okay. And if you want to be pissed off and you're angry and you're frustrated and you need to be there, enjoy it. But understand and know that sometimes when you're in those energies, you're kind of alone sometimes. And when you're alone, it causes a lot of thoughts and feelings and emotions in your body. Now, I'm not saying you have to be positive every freaking moment. What do they call it? Positive toxicity. It's like, I never heard you could be over positive, which is kind of crazy. But anyhow, that's just me, because I don't know what that stands. When we start to buy into all these terms, these ideologies and these belief systems that other people have, you have people who say, oh, you're a narcissist. People throw that word around like it's like bubble gum and chewing gum. Oh, yeah, they're a narcissist. Well, it takes a narcissist to know a narcissist, right? So it takes an angry person to know when someone's angry. It takes a happy person to know when somebody's happy. It takes to know when somebody is doing you wrong because you've done other people wrong. So you have these things that go into our lives and people trying to, connect with. And sometimes when we connect to other people, the connection's not there. The connection's not there. And that's okay, because we're not supposed to connect with everybody. We're supposed to meet people in that moment. You bow, you move on, you move forward, or you just walk on by. We are one, as most of you believe in that system, but we are one of the many. So we are the piece and the part of the whole. Meaning is we're supposed to experience what we're supposed to experience in our present, in our particular moment, in our particular space. Just because I'm one and you're one, we're all part of the one, it doesn't mean that we have to have the same exact experience, because we never will. It's impossible. Because Creator is experiencing us through all these little pieces and parts. Because Creator created us in order to experience all these things. Drum circles, feelings, emotions, cancers, feelings, loss, death, violence. And so you ask yourself, who are we? And then you ask yourself, who's creator? Who's the creation? The creation is a manifestation, the creation of all the things that is or was or ever will be, right? If you resonate with that kind of energy. But a lot of people, get all hung up that things have to be a certain way. And that's okay. They can be that way if it centers and grounds you. So no matter how I feel, no matter how you feel, no matter how we resonate, how we navigate doesn't always work out for other people. You can never be anybody else. You should never be anybody else. You can never be anybody else. My favorite thing is when people say, oh, but you never walked in my shoes. Well, number one, they don't fit, and I don't like the style shoe you wear anyhow. So that's the best way to handle that. You can't walk in anybody's shoes. You can only have empathy and compassion that this person's going through something, that this person's feeling some type of, disconnect or feelings and emotions of remorse or anger or frustration about their personal life. If we're going to compare apples to apples, or apples to oranges and bananas to, pineapples, there's a big discrepancy between them. Do they all nourish you? Do they all feed you? Sure, of course they do. They all give you substance. They all give you some kind of connective, something that benefits us. But not everybody likes pineapples. Not everybody eats bananas. Not everybody likes apples. Not everybody likes oranges. But there's somebody like me who likes all that stuff, So life is really fun. Life's fun because you get all these people who, they're in their own thought, in their own mind, their own processes. They think that they have to champion that. They have to come out and say, oh, you're wrong and you're wrong and you're right and you're right. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. If that's what your goal is, to be right and be correct, okay. The only person you're impressing is yourself. Because in that slight moment, everybody's like, oh, yeah, they're right. And then next thing you know, they're off doing their own thing again. And do they remember what happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago? No. You can't even remember what happened 5 minutes ago. When I do my shamanic work, when I do my practice, and when I do my medicine work, I always give people tasks, the people who especially want to learn and do what I do. Because it's not hard. It's not easy. It's connecting with yourself and understanding that, you're just part of the tool. You're not necessarily healing anybody because you're healing yourself through the process of working with others. There is an aspect of healing and touch and where you actually do help move energy. Yes, because we become the hollow bone. But there's one thing that I do, and it's probably the most easiest thing to do, but it's the most complicated thing to do. And there's two things that I do. I said one, but I said two. First of all is listening. If you listen and you attentively listen with compassion and an open heart and understanding that this person wants to change their life, because they wouldn't be in your room, they wouldn't be on your table, they wouldn't be in your space, they wouldn't be around you. And when they're reaching out, I've worked with so many clients where I never got them on the table, never had to, because I just listened. Because that's one of the first shamanic practices they teach you, the art of listening. So listen to what really is being said, and then echoing back to them what you heard. And sometimes they will correct you. No, I didn't say that, but it does sound like that, but I can see that. And just the conversation with another human being about who they are and where they're at and why they're feeling the way they do is vitally important. And those who want to do the work I do, one of the biggest tasks I do is, just journal your day to the specific point of everything you did. Every little detail. Don't leave anything out. And this is really hard for people that I've worked with. And there aren't many who do this work, because to detail and to know exactly where I'm going with this is, if I asked you to journal exactly what your day looked like, it can't be one of these things where you're like, well, I got up in the morning, went to the bathroom, blah, 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 then I went and made myself a coffee. No, that's not detailed. Those are details, but that's not detail. Detail would say, I opened my eyes. I turned my head side to side. I let out a big yawn. I stretched my eyes. I looked over to the window and saw there was no sun wasn't out yet. I wiggled my toes. I passed gas in that moment. Rolled to the side a little bit. And those are just the physical details of what my mind's thinking. I'm not even thinking about my heart was working all night. My digestive system slowed down to a crawl, you know. So that being detailed about life is vitally important. To be connected, to hear your own heartbeat, to hear the blood flowing through your veins. You know, it's powerful stuff. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if it's Apple. I think Apple, yeah. They created this silent room. I don't know if you've probably heard of it. In this silent room, they'll give you $1 million if you can sit in there for an hour alone in your thoughts. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, there was one guy who almost did it. I think he lost out by a minute or two, I forget. But to be in a room where all you hear is you hear nothing else, you start to hear your heart, you start to hear your breath. I mean, everything has just become so hypersensitive, loud. And it's fascinating. Look it up because it really blows your mind. You think it would be an easy task to be in the silence of your own existence. And no, it's not. It's really powerful. The messages that you have for yourself are so profound and so amazing. And if we sat in silence, we would totally disregard sometimes what we would hear from our own personal thoughts and minds, because there's pieces and parts of us. Remember, there's pieces and parts that don't believe even what we tell ourselves. Oh, everything's going to be okay. And then another part going like, yeah, nothing's going to be okay, dude. Are you kidding me? Are you really not? The world's falling apart, man. Oh my God, you see what's happening over there? You know, and then there's another part like, yeah, let's give peace a chance. And there's another part like, peace, we've given peace a chance. We gave peace all the chances it has. And you know what? Nothing's changed. Everything's still the same. Blah, 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 blah. You know? And that's kind of how human beings live. This is how we survive all this time, you know? Oh, they're going to get us first. We need to get them first. If we don't get them first, they're going to get us first. Oh, you know? We just landed on this island. We don't know what we're doing here. Who are these people? What are these people? They don't believe in God. Let's kill them all. You know? That's progress. That's the moment. That's the times. You know, I had a conversation yesterday with a lady who's an attorney, and we were talking about how, you know, how hard the bar exam is. And, you know, she passed it on the first try, and she's telling me that JFK Jr. failed it 4 times. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty significant, you know. Why would he fail? Why would he not pass? And it left me with a lot of quandary and thought about those things, about how we stifle ourselves and how we sabotage ourselves. I have to believe that there's a part of him that didn't really want to be an attorney. No matter, even though he went to school, I can't say that he was dumb or not smart or not bright. No, ethically, there's some serious questions you have to answer in a specific way. And, you know, there's like this rule and this unspoken norm of how things are supposed to be. And there's no room when it comes sometimes to the law for flexibility. And that's where the law can be detrimental sometimes. Constitutional law, Sharia law, all these different laws that we see, sometimes they benefit you, sometimes they don't. Even the laws in the universe, the law of the universe has its rules. If you jump off a building, you could survive, but I'm sure there's some things that probably will affect you, some things that, will detrimentally change you forever, or you could possibly die. I jumped off a building, not a two-story building. Yeah, I guess it was a 2-story building. As a little kid, put on a towel and jumped. I thought I was Superman, and the only reason I probably survived is because I thought I was Superman. If I just did it because thought it would be a cool thing to do, that wasn't the good thing. But, my aunts took my clothes off, hit me, they called back my spirit. They were doing CPR, they didn't even know it. Thank God to them that at least somewhere in the universe, someone had this idea, like if you take people's clothes off, put them on backwards and hit them on the chest, And that's what they teach us in CPR. They teach us 30 compressions, 2 breaths. You know, when I work with kids, I never had to use it, thank God. I never want to, because that's a scary place to be. But there's just like these things sometimes that when we do this spiritual work that, you know, we do naturally and without thinking. And, you know, instead of just watching someone, you know, deteriorate and wither off or die, we make an attempt to save, because there's a part of us that needs to save ourselves in healing. That's why when we work with people, when we see people, we want them to be so well. We want them to be good, because we know the vulnerability in the aspects of humanity, who we are as human beings, that one day our turn will come where we're going to be laying on the gurney on the table and remembering all the things that are important, versus you're not going to be remembering all the bad things. You're going to be remembering about all the good things, all the people that you've missed, all the people you love, all the people you're going to reunite with. When you're on there, how do I know this? Because these are past lives popping in right now. You know, these are stories that I've worked with people. This is hospice works that I've done with other people. They don't talk about the houses that they didn't invest in. They don't talk about the things they bought. You know, they don't talk about all these. They talk about the friendships they wish they would have fixed, the friendships they should have had, the places they should have traveled, you know, the gratitude they should have had for things. These are words that come out of people's mouths. But we so much hate to, you know, talk about these things, because it makes us vulnerable when we're living. But you know what? When we're in the drum circle last night, I say, everybody get up and stretch. Okay, once we stretch, that's because that's our connection to ourselves, to, you know, connect with us and get ourselves ready. And then I say, look to your left, look to your right, say hello to somebody. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Look across the circle, say hello to somebody. Why? Because sometimes that's the only interaction that some people give or do for others. Why? Because they're afraid. Number 2, no one's ever taught them. You know, in my culture, where I come from, Peru, and, you know, in Peru, in some other countries too as well, in the Peruvian culture, we say hello, we shake hands, we give a kiss on the cheek. You know, in European countries, they do that too, you know, and we connect. You know, I'm American from South America. I'm Peruvian American. You know, I'm from Peru, America, right? So I'm not Hispanic. I'm not Latino. I'm indigenous. I'm the offshoot of other somebody else's, you know, beliefs, but I'm not that. I am from Peru. Who are we? Who you are? I'm Peruvian, who's a naturalized citizen in this country now. I'm part of an ancestral lineages of people who did the work that I do. I'm not Latino. I'm not Latinx. I'm not Hispanic. You know, I'm none of that stuff. That's somebody else's creation and putting their energy onto things, into group of people who completely, honestly, have their own cultures, their own belief system, their own language, their own dialects, their own, you know, slang, and their own way of speaking their version of Spanish. To call Mexicans Peruvians and all these other Latino countries, you know, we call them all Latino countries, the same because we speak Spanish. That's just the language, man. But Mexicans are Mexicans, Peruvians are Peruvians, like United States of America people are United States of America people, okay? You just call yourselves Americans because it's easier to say than United States of America people, okay? But this whole continent, Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, we are all Americans. Who are we? That's who we are. That's what we put our label ourselves. You know, when we start putting people into these categories, when you group people into these conglomerates, that's where the racist feelings and thoughts come into, because then you see us all exactly the same. You acknowledge us all exactly the same. We treated all exactly the same. It's like saying everybody's African, right? Africa is a continent, not a country. But yet, there are people who group people and just conglomerate everybody. The Middle East. Oh, yeah, Middle Eastern. Okay, yeah, you're from the Middle East, but they're from a country. They're from a region. And when we start breaking off those barriers, we start peeling away those labels, because for some reason humans love to label stuff. I don't know why, because they feel if they don't have a label, they're not part of something. You know, we have all the gender labels and all these different things, and it works for some and doesn't work for others. And why? That's each individual thought. Because when you start to put things in categories that aren't relatable to, then people can't associate to. Like, I don't associate to being Latino or Hispanic, which I have both influences, right? From the Spain and from Portugal and from all that reasons. But damn it, I'm a native Peruvian. That's where I come from. That's where I was born. That's where my soil is. That's where my bacterium comes from. That's where my roots are. But I'm here in the United States of America now, embraced, indoctrinated to some degree into the ways of life here. I try to keep my culture alive and share it through my drumming, share it through my medicine work, and through, you know, different types of ceremonies that I do. That way it's never forgotten. And America, like I said in the past, it's a big salad bowl. My friend Ronnie, I love when he told me this. America's a big salad bowl. We're not a melting pot. If you want people to melt in, then you're creating Latinoism. You know, you're creating, you know, this thing. You know, I don't even know what you call it in the United States. If you start to melt everybody together, you're trying to create this new verse of humans or verse of identity. But in a salad bowl, you are the lettuce. You can be the tomato. You can be the cucumber. You can be all garnished and dressed in with the types of dressings. And then we're all mixed together. But yet we're still keeping our identity, but landlocked within that bowl, landlocked within those ideas and those ideologies of those things that we've created. So we're a salad bowl more than we are a melting pot. Because if we melt, it means we become something else and someone other than who we were originally. And that's what's happened in the past, where everybody created the melting pot ideology, the idea that now you have to be this and you have to create this. You cannot speak any other language. You have to speak only English. You know, if you go to any other foreign country, there's people speaking 3, 4, 5 languages. Why? Number one, it's cool to learn more than one language. I think it's neat. I think it helps the brain processes too. It helps your mind and syncopate and create and, you know, do all these amazing things. Some people can't even speak English or write English to any degree, let alone try to speak another language. And I get it. And I understand why we do what we are, because they're trying to create an identity from a very young country into this ideology of what they would like to be. But they don't even know what they like to be, because they're so fractioned and so divided and so decisive in how they want to see the world, there's no common ground, there's no common goal. You know, when you go to China, yes, there are different factions of Chinese and different, you know, groups, kind of like we have indigenous people here in this country. You have the Lakotas, you have, you know, the Cherokee, you have the Nemaha, you have all these different groups. But a lot of those names aren't even their first names. These are names are given to them too. You know, they're like the Wyandotte, for example. That's not really called the Wyandotte. You know, the Adena. The Adenas aren't even, that's not even the real name. That's a name given, you know, because they didn't know who they were, whoever discovered them. Those are just examples. And so when you go to like these different countries, in Peru, the same way, you have 200 tribes of people, you know, different belief systems, different ideas. You go to, you know, the Middle East countries, you know, you go to African countries, you know, the continent of Africa. You have all these different belief systems and tribes. And yet, you know, we sit here in our chairs and like, oh, that's terrible. What's that happening? Why do they do that? How could they kill somebody else? How could they just wipe out a whole belief system? Because it's called indoctrination. It's called the melting pot. It's creating, you know, we don't want people to be individuals. We don't want people to be, you know, in this, you know, this thought of their own thought. We want them to be controlled through, you know, some kind of social structure. Because if we don't have any control. We don't have any power over it. Who are they? Who are we if we can't control them? But you know what? You know what's funny? Who are they and who are we and whatever? They are us. And I think people miss that. The people who are in charge, the people who are in power are us. They are us. They took the steps to be apart from us in order to represent us. And somewhere along the lines, we've allowed our power to disassociate ourselves from whoever we think we are. Now, I'm not saying be whoever you are and do whatever you want, because that's a huge, big difference. When I mean do whatever you want, means you don't just destroy and just annihilate and destruct things because you don't like it. You got to come to a place where you can talk and have a conversation and say, hey, we're different. How can we coexist? And coexisting is important, but part of humanity, and humanity doesn't want to coexist. Who are we? They know who they are. They are who they feel they need to be. And so in our country, it's the same way. We call it patriotism. We call it radicalism. We call them, ultra-Christian right. We call them radicals. We call them, hippies. We call them whatever. We put people in categories and label them because it's easier to keep people in a file and keep them, separate from us. We don't want to associate with those guys. No, why? Because that's how we control each other. That's how we manipulate each other. That's how we progress, digress, reverse, try to change, make changes. Because we have to champion for the people who don't want to champion themselves. And sometimes people can't champion themselves because they've been taught not to champion themselves. And sometimes people just fall on hard times. Sometimes people just don't have it. Why do they fall on hard times? Because the system is designed to create hard times. And if you don't believe that, you need to really think about that. The system is all around the world is designed to create certain social economic groups in our world in order to fill and create and fill gaps in places and things that need to be filled. But we don't, sometimes we're like, oh, no, it doesn't have, no. Sure it does. Sure it does. The system is designed to make everybody the same as much as possible. If your kid has a learning disability, well, let's just put them on Ritalin. Let's put them on some ADD, HDAD medicine and try to conform them and put them in the classroom so they can fit in with everybody else because everybody else is complying and your kid's not complying and your kid is a disruption. No, teacher, you just don't know how to teach this sentient being who has evolved beyond your capacity to teach them. Okay? It's not that this child something's wrong with them. Is that they process differently. Their brain is different. Their whole existence is different. It's no different than you saying, well, I'm going to change every indigenous kid's name to Bob and Rachel, because we don't want to call them whatever their real name is. Because that's not American. That's not, Peruvian. That's not, wherever you come from, they've done that. It's been done all over the world. It's nothing just exclusive to the United States. All indigenous cultures have been raped and savaged for at some point or another in order to create and manipulate and create a workforce, a slave force, a breeding force. When you look at life, the things that humanity has done to other people is quite frightening and quite sickening and quite saddening. In order for, fill the greenbacks or wherever you come from. Humans do humans wrong. We do. And, and some people don't like to hear that because you know what? Oh, no, but I don't do that. I've never hurt anybody. Maybe, maybe not. But you hurt yourself too. You've learned to hurt yourself. You learn to hurt others. You learn in order to, to manipulate certain situations. You know how to avoid certain situations and things don't like. If you don't like certain things, you know how to stay away from it. You know how to stay out of it. You know how to avoid the homeless person when you don't want them to come into your sphere of influence, when you don't want them to come into your life. You know how to walk around them. You know exactly how to stare this way and not look at them, act like they're not there. You know exactly what to say when someone's going to ask you for money and you don't want to give them money because you don't have any money or you just don't feel like they deserve to have the money. You know exactly what to say. You know exactly what to do. So it's not like we don't know. It's like we don't choose to do. You know, most humans are pretty smart and they're pretty resourceful. Most of us here. It doesn't matter if you have autism. It doesn't matter if you have some kind of mental incapacities or whatever. We know how to navigate certain rivers and waters, or you wouldn't be as far as you are in the world. You know how to manipulate. And sometimes you don't even know you're manipulating people. Sometimes you don't even know you're taking advantage of people. It's just become so natural for you to, expect things to be a certain way that other people feel sorry for you or feel compassion for you. But then what they don't realize, and then what you don't realize sometimes, is the compassion, that well dries up. That well dries up because you know what? That person gets tired. People get tired. After a while, they get tired. You're not helping the situation. But like I said, you know how to avoid things. You know who you are. You know exactly who you are. Everybody knows exactly who they are. Everybody knows exactly where they want to be, how they want to be. Now, do you know yourself? That's the difference. Do you know who you can truly be or truly are? I don't know. Can you? You have so much potential. I have so much potential to be much more than I even give myself credit or even can imagine what I am in this world. Like I said, I'm the compilation of so many people that came before me, just as you are. And the idea to think that I'm unique in the sense that I'm the version of so many who gets the opportunity to either ride the wave and continue the heart and the feelings and the emotions and not heal them. I get to choose that. Or I can just stay on the boat, enjoy the ride, screw everybody else. You know what? You're on your own. Good luck. I'm looking out for me. I'm me. Doesn't matter, But in the end, it does matter. It does matter because sometimes we'll find ourselves very alone in our thoughts, in our feelings, and our emotions. And so, this who we are. Who are we? What are we? What are we becoming? It's really deep words because we don't even know who we are. We think we know who we are. We have ideas of who we are. No, most of the things who we think we are just accomplishments and achievements and things that we've done, things that we've made, things that we've created, things that we've said, things that we shared, books that we wrote, we think that's who we are. That's not who we are. Restaurants that I had. Where are the restaurants now? Where are the apartments now? Why isn't my tenant paying me rent? Who are we? We are who we are in the moment. We are how we experience the moment. We're that version of who we are in that present time. And sometimes we make some really catastrophic decisions. And sometimes we're just a poor decision, a poor batch. Now, are all good people good? Are all people bad? Not necessarily. But I'll be honest with you. There are some very, very bad people in this world. And there are some very, very good people in the world. And there's some very, very aloof people in this world. There are some very, very indifferent people in the world. There are some very, very people to the left. There's some very, very people to the right. There are some very, very people that don't know who they are. And it's okay. Now, I challenge you to look around your influence of friends. I challenge you to look around and see who influences you. I challenge you to look around who you influence, who you have rapport with, who you think that you can say anything to and they'll be okay with that. Who you kind of have like this little power kick over, like you can say just about anything and they'll be like, oh yeah, Iggy's right on. Because they're there. And there are other people who do that to you too. and you hang by their words. You hang by what they say. You are just, you know, I'll never forget this when I learned this. You're the books you read. Back then, it used to be the tapes and CDs. Now it's MP3s and videos you watch, right? It's the movies you watch, you know. Did I say books? Anyhow, you know, it's all that. It's all those things. The people you associate with, the books you read, the things you listen to, the things you watch, and how you perceive the world, you know. You're influenced by that core belief system, the people around you. You don't see it because you're in it. So it's kind of like, you know, you're in the storm. Sometimes you're in the periphery, and sometimes you're in the quiet, and you're watching everything spin around you. You're like, wow, you're in the eye of the storm. When you're in the eye of the storm, supposedly it's the most quiet, the most peaceful place. As soon as you step out, all hell breaks loose. Because that's how we create. That's how we grow. We grow from stepping out of the quietness. We come into the moment reflection. We come into the space. We come into that Zen place. We come into that sacred moment where we're able to reflect back on all the things that influence us. And then we step out back into the world, which is there's a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, because not everybody has the tools, and not everybody has learned to have the tools. Not everybody has been willing to learn the tools or take on the tools, but it's all there. It's all there. Who you are is a journey that you'll have for the rest of your life. Who you think you are is going to be a journey for the rest of your life. What you think you are is a whole journey for the rest of your life. What you become in that moment or in the future is a journey that's going to happen for the rest of your life. Why? Because you never arrive to this destination of being something. You arrive to ports of the journey to continue the journey where you've, you know, shed off certain things that no longer serve you, ideas that no longer serve you, and you've embraced new faculties and new ideas and new beliefs and new, you know, indoctrinations to carry on to the next journey. Because you know what? Sometimes the knowledge and the belief systems that we have to take us to the next journey don't allow us to go on to the next boat or whatever you want to call it, on the next, you know, rhythm, because we're still stuck in this pattern. Once we leave this pattern and we're opening up the pattern to learn, we move into the next incarnations of ourselves, evolutions of ourselves. It's not that we lose this here, because we have that knowledge, we have that filing cabinet of information that we can move forward. But a lot of that stuff doesn't apply when we start getting here, because we start learning new things from new people, new experiences, new situations. And that's what's so beautiful about life. Even though as human beings, we don't live very long compared to other, you know, existence like trees and rocks and the earth, whatever. If we live to 80 to 100, that's like a miracle in our society. Now we live to 70, if we're lucky to be to 80. Sometimes now people are just dying at 60, which is kind of scary, you know? But I can understand too, sometimes you get to a place where your body and your feelings, your emotions, you can't keep up. Like I understand sometimes when I was sick, when I was in the hospital, I understand why some people were ready to go and how they can create those ideas in their head and create the manifestations in their body, because the cells rebel against us. Our personal body rebels. You know, I told my sister one time, one of my youngest sisters, I said, you know what? They have the cure for cancer. And she's like, oh, no, they don't. They do. You just can't afford it. And number two, they don't want to give it to everybody. And you know what? And she, you know, she was a little upset with me, you know, in those moments. But, you know, that there's a part of us that just knows when to turn off. It's kind of like the Aborigines. They would go into the wilderness, you know, the Australian Aborigines, when it was time to die. They looked healthy, they looked strong, but they knew it was their time to, you know, to depart the planet, depart this Mother's Gaia. They walk into the jungle, sit down, You can do the research. You can fact check me on this. Close their eyes, and that was it. It was their time. It was over. That is so powerful. And the connection that you can have with Mother Earth, and to know your circadian rhythm, your biological rhythm, your harmony of yourself, and to know that it's your time. But in Western society, if you knew when you were going to die, that would be so fearful. You would be so afraid. You would do everything in your power not to, but you still would have your end date. So a great teacher of mine taught me one time, we're born and we die. And so those are our true destinies, birth and death. But how we experience our destiny in the middle, that's up to us. How we want to experience it, and the experiences we gain from the experience. And I said, wow, that's powerful. That means that people can influence me, but still at the same time, I can debunk their influence, and I can create whatever I need to create in that moment. I can be whatever I want to be if I truly do the work. But the destinies, birth and death, those are guaranteed. What's not guaranteed, and what's open to interpretation, what's open to create and manifest and work in your favor, the nougat in the middle. Okay? Here's the outer part of the chocolate. But inside here, that yummy part that you guys like and you eat when you eat your chocolate bars or your Oreos or whatever you eat, or, the pie, anything, whatever, you just put it there. All that in here, that's the fun stuff. That's the stuff that we get to decide and dictate to some degree. And then we come to this point where we say our final goodbyes in this particular existence of who we are. And when we say goodbye, it's remembering not so much where we came from, because we don't really think much about how we were born. We always think about the things we wish we had done, the things we would have been. If I had more time, I would have done this, or I would have hugged this, or hugged her, or him, or her, or had more kids, or adopted kids, or not had any kids at all. Depending where your mindset is. But in the middle, it's yours. Who are you? You are whoever you want to be. You are whoever you want to create and recreate, manifest, emulate. That's up to you. Nobody can do that for you. I can't tell my wife. I can't tell my kids. They have to experience that. But everything in the middle between birth and death is yours. That's your destiny. Your destiny is what you want to create and recreate and remanifest. Because you know what? Sometimes people put us in their own visions and their own quests, and we follow, and then sometimes we outgrow those visions and quests, and we move forward. And you know what? We get to the point where we depart, get ready to depart, going into the next, because I do believe there's another existence. I don't know what it looks like or what it feels like, but I know it's there because I can feel it. I can sense it. It's there because the humans know, we know that sometimes we don't want to go there because, it means we're immortal and we're mortal at the same time. Our immortal part is all the things we do here and everything that we remember and all the things that people will think about us. The mortal part is we know that we're going to die, that we know that we're going to transition into the next existence, the next realm. And it's not so much that we're afraid, it's so much that what we didn't accomplish, or what we accomplished and what we did and what we didn't do here in the middle between point A and point B. So however you want to look at the world, however you want to see the world, is going to be your reality. If you think someone's bad, you're probably right. If you think someone's good, you could be right, you could be wrong. If you think the world is a beautiful place, That I'd have to agree with. It's really up to whatever you want to create and manifest. So we are great manifestors, and we create everything from good to bad. And every thought, there's nothing new under the universe and under the sun. The ideas that we project outwardly, somebody else will grab and create because you're not willing to do the work and not willing to do it. But sometimes we're just the guys that buy the seeds and, lay them on the counter. And then another person comes by and goes, I found me some seeds, gonna open up the package. And then the seeds are on the ground, or the seeds are in the soil. And they're like, we're not growing, because certain seeds don't grow that way. Then another person comes and goes, well, I have a little shovel. Let me come in there and help you. And they spread it out. And then they get the watering can. And they pour the water in there. And then the patience, if you have patience. And life is about patience and waiting and understanding that not every seed that we plant is going to grow. Not every seed that we put out there is going to manifest. But there's going to be a handful of seeds that grow. And when they grow, they grow really fast sometimes. And then sometimes you don't know what to do. And you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. This is out of control. And then comes the gardener. There's weeds in my yard. Nothing's really a weed. There's a purpose there. There's a challenge there. But the gardener will come in and goes, this particular plant and this particular plant work together or don't work together if you want to see this plant grow. We have to remove these people or these things out of the container because it's causing us a lot of problems. It's causing us a situation. It's keeping us here. If we remove this particular thing that you call a weed, your plant's going to grow like this, tenfold, because it's not competing with the energetic flow and the nourishment. Just like us, there are people who compete with our energetic flow and nourishment. And they take from us, they tell us, they dictate, they project upon us, and they tell us that we have to be this way and that things are this way. But not everything's for everybody, not everybody. And then you know what? You can have the same seeds growing inside the same pot. And one plant's like this, and one plant's like that. And you're going, how is that possible? They both have the same soil, they all have the same foundation. And this one's not growing. But what you fail to see is that this one's growing, but this one's growing in a different way. This one is growing down. Its roots are strong and powerful. And when those seeds grow, and when it pollinates, and when it flourishes, it has the most strength, and it supports this tree. And they work together in a symbiotic relationship. We're so visual and auditory sometimes that we think that because we don't see, the results in the way we think we need to see them, that something's wrong. No, you have to have discernment. You must be patient. You must be willing to understand that sometimes you have to start over and begin again. And your next garden, your next garden, your next garden. We're just a big garden. We're a big flora. We're full of bacterium. We're Mother Earth. We're a version, a piece of her. We're the clay. We're a little part of her. Every single one of us. It doesn't matter. There's a whole world growing inside of us, inside and out. There's things living on us, things living inside of us. There are alien creatures inside of us. There are things we can't even explain why they do what they do. When you see yourself bigger than what you really think you are, the world becomes a very magical place. It becomes you can't put words to it. But it's like the earth, right? We trust that we're going to trust that the universe does what it does. And the planets spin and the sun rotates and puts off so much, heat and so much rays. The moon does her job. The same with our body. The same with our feelings and our emotions. It does those little things. So guys, who are you is yet to be discovered. It's yet to unfold. It's unfolding every single day. So be grateful, be loving, be understanding that every single day is a brand new chance. Every time you wake up, and I stress this, it's not really me telling you what to do, but it's like, just say thank you. Have gratitude. Irisikwi, which means gratitude in Quechua. You know, you get to breathe again. You get to start again. You get to try again. You get to like hit. It's a reset button. It's a moment to say, I get to do things differently. I get to experience life differently if I choose to. And if you're able to have gratitude just for every breath you take, and every leg swing over the bed, and every walk to the bathroom, and not feeling all the aches and pains and knowing they're there, but you know what? And going, I get an opportunity to experience life in a whole different way. Because you don't have to experience the same way. That's the illusion. People think that, they're stuck. They're not stuck. You're not stuck, man. You're stuck in your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, and ideologies and ideas and things and the people who are around you. That's what you're stuck in. But anytime you have the free will and the decision to say, I'm moving this way or that way. So be careful how you speak to yourself. Be careful how you talk. Be careful who you talk to. Be careful how you're learning. Be careful what you're reading. Be careful what you're playing. Video games, movies, whatever. It all affects you. Those of you who don't believe that, well, I can't change your mind. You have your ideas about it. I just know I've experienced for myself and people I've worked with that, things do affect us. Who you are is every day. Who you are and whoever you want to be. So with that, I want to say thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. I hope that you have a chance to purchase my book on Amazon or on my website at iggygarcia.com. And I just want the best for you. And whatever the best is for you, you'll know. And with that, I just want to say, Irisikwi, it's good to be here. Ho'oponopono, matakuyasin. Those are things that I resonate with. Those are things that I hear. And those are things that I connect to. And you know what? You're always going to have your haters. And your haters are just going to hate because they hate parts of themselves that they can't relate to and resonate with you. And that's okay, because you're also a hater too. There are things that you don't like about certain things and certain people. So we're someone's lover and we're someone's hater. So regardless of how you look at the world's not perfect, but there's perfection in the imperfection. And with that, I'll say, have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you next time on Iggy Garcia Live on With Insights Radio, iggygarcia.com. And, take care, be well, and join me on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all my stuff, all my shenanigans, like they say. Anyways, have a great, blessed day. Be well.